Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of OA News Overtime. As always, I'm Jordan Hill with Justin Lee.
Jordan Hill.
Back in studio.
Here we are, yeah.
No longer on the road.
Made it out of the airport.
Yeah, I was very lucky. I didn't know there were questions. There were certainly questions very early Sunday morning.
Hey, yeah.
But by golly, we got back to Lee County, and let me tell you right now, maybe the best sleep of my life on Sunday afternoon. I'll be fine. I'll stay up, and then about 3 o'clock, I just
That's it.
Crashed.
That'll do it, yeah.
Crashed. Well, getting ready for another week of Auburn football. Auburn's getting ready for homecoming, Georgia State on Saturday. Before we dive into that, is there anything else you feel like we need to kind of hit on from the Penn State game? There are a couple things I can throw in from our conversations with some of the players, but anything that's sort of on top of your mind as we get ready for the next week?
No, yeah, Jordan, tell me about what they said today, because I wasn't on the call. What did they say, as we kind of, it's like you said, I think you said Saturday or Sunday, like, we're probably going to talk about Penn State a little bit because there's not much to talk about with Georgia State.
Nope. So the biggest things that kind of struck me from the last 2 days of interviews, I guess at this point, actually the last 3 days of interviews, Brian Harsin was asked about the coverage. With Kevin Steele as defensive coordinator, it was a lot more press man. Derek Mason kind of likes more off-man zone coverages. And Harsin was asked if he thought there was maybe some growing pains with sort of that change. And he kind of refuted that. He said that more of what he saw, he thought was just kind of a lack of execution rather than, guys not getting it and things like that. And I think I'd have to go back and look at all the transcripts, but I believe it was Donovan Kaufman who on Tuesday was saying that it was really the underneath coverages they had to shore up. That was the biggest issue, that they kind of struggled with the underneath stuff. And then other than that, the biggest thing I was kind of struck by today, we're recording on Wednesday, was Colby Wooden. He was really, straightforward with how things went because he was part of that pass rush that struggled. I mean, I think there was one quarterback hurry, no sacks against Penn State, and Sean Clifford took advantage of it and had – I went back and looked. The best statistical completion percentage of his career in a game where he had more than 3 attempts.
More than 3?
So basically the best game of his career as far as completion percentage goes.
Add him to the list, right?
Exactly. But Colby talked about the fact that they really thought they could get by with just rushing 3.
Sure.
And being able to bring pressure, and they couldn't. And I think you and I were both watching a video of one play in particular where you pointed out, you said, look at the numbers.
Right.
I mean, it was 3 against at least 5. They may have even had a tight end in there too. Like
anybody can do that math.
Yes. Yes. And I think that's the biggest thing was that they were at a disadvantage, and that's something that maybe they did adjust as that game went on. But I mean, clearly Clifford was comfortable, was able to get comfortable. He even scrambled a few times and picked up big gains. But I mean, I just thought that was pretty telling that he was like, we thought we could get by rushing 3, and we sure couldn't, and that was on us.
They held Penn State to like 130 second half yards. But I mean, it's one of those where, and hey, credit to Brian Harsin. He said it that like, hey, after a loss, you go back and you reevaluate as a player and as a staff. And that's one of these things where they've got to reevaluate as far as, obviously the coaches, I mean, the players are all going to pin it on themselves. Kobe's going to be like, well, I should have got to him if it was 1-on-5, right? But, sure up zone coverages, blah, blah, blah. But that's one of those where they've got to reevaluate and make honest evaluations of, hey, did these players execute correctly? And hey, did we put our players in the best position to succeed? And that's what they've got to do this week. That's what, if you're trying to be a good football team, you're in the league with Texas A&M, with Georgia, with Alabama. You're in that league. You've got to make honest assessments and make changes when things didn't go right. So I mean that's the biggest thing we'll see. I mean, when they go down to LSU, do we see some pass rush blitzes? Do we see a little more running the ball? What do we see differently? You know what I mean? Because maybe the goal line fade was the best play ever, Jordan, and the players didn't execute it correctly, right? But in how many situations are you going to point to? You know what I mean? And we're talking about Sean Clifford picking apart, a zone defense. And, and obviously for a lot of fans question the zone probably because we haven't seen it in years.
Yeah. Yeah. And I get it too because it is more passive than saying we've got the guys that can play man to man and you're going to have to just try to beat us. But that's, there's more than one way to skin a cat, so I get it trying to do something a little different.
Right. So that's, that's, going into LSU game, that's just what we're gonna be looking at. We're gonna be seeing, like, are they gonna try something different? Are they gonna, was that only because they had no confidence in Sean Clifford? Blah blah blah. So I don't know. We'll see. It's almost, and then. Looking at Georgia State, we're not going to learn anything from this game. Nope. That's going to be more akin to the first two games. So it's kind of like a thread between Penn State to LSU that you just kind of have to watch, I guess.
I agree. And you kind of hit on this, and I'm not the kind of person that when you look at a loss that like always wants to be glass half full, moral victories, blah, 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 blah. But I think that you can learn a lot from that game. Mm-hmm. And I think that there are things that, we may in a month or two kind of circle back to that Penn State game and say that maybe that was exactly what Auburn needed to fix X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. We don't know that. Because unfortunately we cannot predict the future. Right. But some may think we can.
If you were 4-0 with wins over 4 cupcakes going into this 5-game stretch, I wouldn't feel as good.
Yeah.
I'd rather be 3-1 with a tough game against Penn State as far as how many games I'm going to win out of the next 5.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing even for us going into that Penn State game was there were only 2 of those cupcakes, and we were saying we still don't know anything about this team. It would have been the exact same thing, sort of what you were just talking about.
Mm-hmm. Right. And, what we're talking about, LSU, we're talking about LSU and then 4 teams ranked ahead of you.
Yeah.
You got to win in Death Valley and then make 4 chalk upsets?
Yeah. Death Valley where you haven't won since 99.
Woo! Woo!
Not for the faint of heart, sir. Not for the faint of heart.
No, it isn't. But that's the future, Jordan. First,
one game at a time, maybe.
We're gonna have a homecoming queen. I don't know. We're gonna have homecoming.
I tweeted this out, so I don't know if you saw this. Can you name the last time Auburn lost to a non-conference team on homecoming, and can you name the quarterback?
You gave it away when you said name the quarterback.
Yeah. I think that's part of it.
That was what gave it away.
Yeah.
That they had a notable quarterback.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would know that was old Brett.
Brett Favre.
Yeah, Brett Favre.
Favre.
Southern Miss. So yeah, that was. I think that one the quarterback part gave it away.
I thought it
because Brett's a part of Auburn lore coming and beating their butt.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Another thing before we talk Georgia State, can you name probably the most famous Georgia State alum?
Ooh. Like athlete or
no, non-athlete? Musician.
Ooh, no, I don't know.
Ludacris.
Luda. All right. Is Georgia State in Atlanta?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
It is in Atlanta.
Yeah, that's the state school. It's cheaper to go to than some of the others.
Yep. So
Land-Grant, maybe.
Georgia State at this point has only had football for a little bit over a decade now, but they've been pretty competitive over the years. Sean Elliott, who was a guy that was a Steve Spurrier assistant for a long time, he was actually the guy they tapped interim head coach when they had that bad year, and Spurrier was like, "All right, bye, I'm retiring." Retired. Well, gotta go. Click clack.
Click clack.
So Sean's been there for a while. They've been pretty successful. This is a successful Sun Belt team. But not to the quality of like a Coastal Carolina or an App State, but a team that'll probably go to a bowl game. They will be coming in this game 1-2.
What's his face used to coach there?
Bill Curry.
I was gonna say Gene Stallings.
Gene Stallings, close. Who Gene Stallings replaced at Alabama. Yeah. But they're 1-2. They got just totally destroyed by Army to start the year. Lost to North Carolina the next week.
Notable. Army. Tennessee has dropped Army from next year's schedule, probably because of that game.
The smartest thing that Tennessee has done under the Josh Heupel era.
And they added Akron. So I put on Twitter, I said, so that they saw Auburn struggle more with Alabama State than Akron. Said we needed to get in on that. And then someone replies and was like, Army's got such great history. Why would you drop that game? And I'm like, because they're going to lose.
Because you don't want to lose. They almost beat Michigan a couple of years ago. Like, you have do not play Army under any circumstance.
No. Because, unless you have like 3 weeks, unless it's the opener, because then you have time to prepare for the triple option.
Yes.
That's it. Or you have a bye.
Yes.
Otherwise, don't play. Don't play them.
So Georgia State had to deal with that to open the season, got beat by North Carolina, then came back, and I was kind of surprised they beat Charlotte 20-9 last week.
Ooh, Charlotte beat somebody, didn't they?
Charlotte beat Duke.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know if that counts as somebody, but
It's somebody.
yes. So they're 1-2, but they got a little momentum. They made a quarterback change.
Transfer property win over an ACC team.
You know, not too shabby.
Okay.
But this is a game that Auburn should be able to win and do it fairly easily. This is not a Georgia State team that, speaking of Tennessee, they beat Tennessee 2 years ago in Knoxville. But it would be, I think, even a bigger upset because of where the Tennessee program was at the time. And that Georgia State team was pretty loaded. I think they may have won like 7 or 8 games.
Sure.
Like they had a good year.
Sure.
So what are we looking for out of this game? What do we want to see that makes us go, all right, something kind of positive as they get ready to start conference play next week?
You want to see a lot of Sean Shivers.
Yes.
You want to see him worked back in, not missing a beat, back in, because you can't run this Tank Bigsby and this Jarquez Hunter kid. You can't just run them to death. So.
And it won't work for an entire season.
Right. It's
just won't.
Not sustainable. So get Sean Shivers a lot of work, a lot of reps, get him back in the fold after missing 2 games. And then that's what I want to see.
I agree. I think that's the biggest thing. And then for me, it's if there's anyone that's dealing with injuries, try to sit them.
Yep.
Try not to put them out there. Owen Papo is a linebacker that got banged up against Penn State.
You don't need him.
Don't need him.
Chandler Wooten's right there.
Wesley Steiner, Cam Riley, roll them out there and let them. Joko Willis. Let's see what they can do because there's just no reason to try to risk getting a guy hurt when you need Owen when SEC play starts. Sure. You cannot afford to be playing without him, and you're already going to miss Jacoby for the first half of this game because of that targeting penalty. So you need those. It's a good chance, I think, for these younger linebackers to kind of prove themselves.
Sure. I'd be interested to see who catches balls. I like every game. I'm interested.
I think that's been our thing the entire season. Was like, okay, we still didn't learn anything. So what do we think now?
So see if any receiver steps up a little bit more. Obviously, Demetrius has kind of made himself the go-to guy, but who else has a chance to?
And I think even at tight end, John Samuel Shanker had like 6 receptions last week.
Right. But again, okay. So I think Fergie pointed out the non-tight end receptions, like the targets and catches to receivers was like 50%. It was like 14 of 28.
Yeah, I agree.
Like going to Shanker was like 6 of 6 and it boosted the numbers a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, you got to find your receivers and your go-to receivers because obviously it's not like the tight ends don't count.
Yeah.
But you need go-to guys.
Absolutely.
So we'll see. We'll see what playing a defense like Georgia State can maybe, who can kind of step up and who can show some stuff.
No doubt. And we'll have all kind of coverage coming out of that game. Before we move on, we got our beat writer for this week. Was able to reach out to Georgia State. 247 Sports beat writer Ben Moore. He was able to come on for a few minutes and tell me a little bit about this year's Panthers team, what sort of stands out to him, what he sort of makes of this game, and maybe what Auburn can kind of expect coming into their homecoming game. So good to talk to Ben. We'll roll that clip and see what Ben had to say.
Well, yeah, Ben, like we were just talking about before we started recording, big game for Georgia State this weekend coming to Jordan-Hare. And so Georgia State right now is 1-2 coming in this game, coming off a big win over Charlotte. Just where do you feel like this Georgia State team is going into this big game against an SEC opponent?
Yeah, I think the when you look back in the first part of August, fall camp comes in, you look at the schedule, and it was daunting. I mean, arguably probably one of the toughest schedules in the group of 5. You face a very good Army team, which was slated to win 8 or 9 games there as an FBS independent. You got to go on the road to North Carolina, which preseason was top 10. And then come home with Charlotte. No disrespect to the 49ers, but that was going to be certainly the probably the fourth, in terms of the line there. And then obviously going to face Auburn on the road. There was a lot of unknown, going in, obviously, preseason looking at Auburn with new coaching staff on both sides of the ball. There is some familiarity, obviously, with Brian Harsin and the Georgia State program from his time at Arkansas State. If it hasn't been asked already, I'm sure Brian Harsin knows Georgia State well. And if you ask him about Albert Wilson, he probably doesn't have fond memories. I think Albert went absolutely nuts the year there in Jonesboro, Arkansas, in a 38-35 victory for the Red Wolves of Arkansas State. So, but no, from a Georgia State perspective, certainly we're hoping to have a building year, 2020 with the COVID shortened year. Only playing 10 games, but winning 6 of those and landing in a bowl game with a redshirt freshman quarterback in Cornelius Quad Brown. You had all 11 starters back on offense, 9 of the 11 starters returning on defense. The team was looking to take a step forward. So far, the results probably don't say that as much, and I think Coach Elliott said as much in the press conference yesterday. You don't really know what you have yet with this team, and he wanted to make some changes just to see what kind of response he could get, not only I think from the backups, but from the starters, quite candidly. And, saw that the change of quarterback and running back, defensive back as well. So, could see some more changes this weekend at Auburn. And it's a huge opportunity, no doubt, for the program that did not get to play a Power 5 opponent in 2020. But, of course, we know what happened in 2019 to open up the season and going up to Knoxville and knocking out the Tennessee Vols. So I don't expect a similar type result for the record in week 4. I don't think anybody's sneaking up on, on anyone anymore, certainly after that game in the SEC. But, it should be a good game, looking for a competitive game. And I think that's kind of where the goals are right now for Georgia State.
You sort of hit on some of the changes that have been made within the team. And the big one, Darren Granger stepping up, a former Furman quarterback, started against Charlotte. Just what have you thought of those changes, those tweaks that Coach Elliott has made, and maybe what we can kind of, look for when we get into this game Saturday?
Yeah, and it wasn't, I will say for folks who cover the program and been around the program, it wasn't a stunning change, quite candidly, just because of how rough, Quad Brown had the first 2 games there, just couldn't complete passes, really wasn't moving the ball on the ground in the running game either. Georgia State wants to run the ball first. I mean, if you look there, the way their basically play calls are divided, I mean, they're in between 65 to 68 normally. That's kind of where they want to hum along, where they want to get the quarterback out in space, do a lot of run pass option, being able to do some play action, hit guys in the seam, hit guys outside. And Granger actually was able to do that a couple times against Charlotte and missed a couple throws too. And as Coach Elliott said yesterday, this is Granger's first time playing. Furman punted on the season in 2020, so he didn't get an opportunity to play at all. He played as a freshman in 2019, I believe, played 4 or 5 games starting there. Took the Paladin squad up to Blacksburg and had them very much in that game late in the fourth quarter. So, and of course, Georgia State knows him all too well as well, as he scared the absolute mess out of the Panthers the week after they beat Tennessee. So after the feel good happened, here come Darren Granger, and I think he had 5 touchdowns by himself. So he's a talented young man from the state of South Carolina. Very physically looks very similar to Cornelius Quad Brown, and in size and stature, but has probably a little bit better straight line speed, and I think he took advantage at times of that certainly in the North Carolina game, playing against backups in garbage time. But had that opportunity as well against Charlotte. It was a pretty slick track Saturday night, so he didn't really get out to move as much as he probably wanted to. And I think the coaching staff also just gave him a little bit less of a playbook piece now and get him an opportunity. But he's going to have to make throws, certainly on Saturday, and there's weapons out there. And Georgia State should be returning some guys, as well that were out in the last couple of weeks as well on Saturday.
Just generally on both sides of the ball, who are some guys you feel like Georgia State has that maybe Auburn fans are going to hear about on Saturday, and if they're able to kind of hang around guys that may be really responsible for that happening?
Yeah, well, one of the guys that certainly Coach Elliott has talked about a while, got his first career start last Saturday, Tucker Gregg, big, powerful running back, from the state of Georgia. Another guy, Destin Coates, who, kind of was the topic of his press conference there. He's currently second all-time career leader, both in touchdowns and rushing yards. He's had quite a bit of issues fumbling and holding on the football. And as we know, the one thing that will get you benched faster than anything else as a running back is fumbling and, turning the ball over there. So he had 4 carries for over 80 yards. And he fumbled, and he didn't see the field again Saturday night. So that tells you a lot. He was well on his way to 100, 150-yard performance for sure. On the outside, wide receiver Sam Pinckney, big 6'4", 215-pound wide receiver, missed last Saturday with the hamstring issue. This is a guy that most Power 5 programs knew about in high school out of the state of South Carolina. Jimbo Fisher offered him at the Florida State camp as a high school junior, had 9 offers almost immediately after that. Yes, that's how recruiting works, folks. It immediately kind of spirals from there and gets more offers. So Sam's very talented. He has NFL type potential. They have 2 very good tight ends in Roger Carter and Aubrey Payne. So offensively, whoever starts or whoever stays at quarterback will have an opportunity to play there. On the defensive side of the ball, Dante Wilson at nose guard. He seems to be around in the area all the time. He's a 6th-year senior, one of the super seniors that came back for his 6th COVID year there, and was originally committed to Army. So tell you kind of how he's made up mentally and physically. A little bit undersized as a nose guard, but typically grades out as one of the top true nose guards pound for pound nationally. Really, really tough guy. When he does his job, the linebackers like Blake Curl do very well. Blake had a good standout game, several tackles for loss and a sack. The Panthers defense runs a 3-4. They want to attack inside and outside. They send pressure outside. They send pressure inside, send pressure from the defensive backs as well. A defensive back that I would certainly highlight, and SEC fans, the folks who cover SEC land will remember the name Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger. Well, the Sun Belt kind of has their version of it. His name's Antavius Lane. They call him the hit stick, number 34. He's getting off the bus, looks very, very similar to Tyrann. He's about 5'8.5", 5'9", compact, about 180, 190 pounds. Had 4 interceptions as a freshman and returned a pick 6 in the Lending Tree Bowl last year against Western Kentucky. So he always seems to be around the football. He's just one of those guys that sticks his face in pretty much anywhere as possible, and I expect him to be in the mix as well. He got a little dinged in the North Carolina game, but he was back for Charlotte, so I expect him to certainly want to play.
You look at the game on Saturday. In your mind, what are the keys from the Georgia State perspective? And if you feel bold enough to make a prediction on this game, by all means, but do whatever makes you comfortable, Ben.
I appreciate that. I retired from the prediction game long ago because I was so terrible at it. And I'll tell you, in college football, dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds every year, it gets harder and harder, right? We're seeing FBS and FCS upsets every single week, seemingly. But the 2 matchups that I think I'm looking at specifically, just the Georgia State offensive line versus the Auburn front 7. They did a great job shutting down Penn State, not really allowing them to move. And no disrespect to the first 2 Auburn opponents, I can't really take a ton out of that because they were so overmatched and the games were over pretty quickly. And conversely, I think defensively, I'm very interested to see what kind of level of pressure the Georgia State defense can generate against Bo Nix in that passing attack. To me, he's been efficient in the first 3 games. Hasn't been spectacular. Hasn't put up insane amount of numbers. Hadn't really had to, honestly. That we know how powerful that Auburn running game is. So I think the GSU having to respond to that. The front 7 has actually held up pretty well. In 3 games. I know a lot of folks kind of looked at the Army game and if you weren't paying attention to it, you still held a triple option team under 4 yards per carry, which that's all they're going to do. So here it comes. Try to stop it. I think that's going to be certainly a key, and getting off the field in 3rd downs. That's been obviously the key, and I think they held Charlotte to 4 of 15 on 3rd downs on Saturday. So the Panthers get an opportunity and certainly generate some turnovers. I think that's the opportunity and the success, and that's what happened in Tennessee in 2019. The very first play of the game, winning interception. 4 plays later, the Panthers scored and took another interception as well and fumble. So, turnovers can even the game out a little bit and go that route. And conversely, the Panthers can't turn the ball over. And that's something they have done already this season.
Yeah, no doubt turnovers will be something to look for. That was something we were kind of talking about leading into Saturday. Well, excited to see this game. We've got a few local guys that are on the roster, Mason Cook, Terrell Gordon, and Jordan Jones, another guy that a true freshman. So excited to see that. Well, Ben, I really appreciate the time. For the people listening to the podcast, the people who see this, let them know where they can see your stuff, where they can follow you, where they can kind of get the Georgia State perspective on the next few days and then on game day.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been more 24/7 on all social media outlets. I've been fortunate to be with the 24/7 Network and CBS Sports Network for more than 7 years now. I'm the publisher of PantherTalk.com and part of the 24/7 Network, and we cover cover Georgia State football, basketball, recruiting, all around. I've spoken to all three of those individuals, know them very well, know their parents well, that you talked about, hoping to see some of those guys on the field. Don't know if Jordan's going to get a chance to play just as his freshman season that way in a loaded linebacker room. But definitely it has been a focus, and truly the state of Alabama has been a focus of the Georgia State program historically. And a lot of great players coming out, obviously, of that state. So looking forward to some homecomings there for guys that are from the state of Alabama. And as a guy who enjoys many weekends on Lake Wedowee, I'm very familiar with Alabama as well. So I'm excited to make the road trip to South 85.
Great. Looking forward to seeing you and looking forward to this game getting here. Thanks again for the time. And I guess I'll probably see you on Saturday.
Sounds great. Appreciate the time, Jordan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, again, I want to give a shout-out to Ben for taking the time to talk. He said he's talked to a few different Auburn beat writers this week getting ready for this game. And
we found the one Georgia State writer?
Pretty much, yeah. But, I was pleased sort of with what he saw, that this could kind of be like a learning experience for Georgia State. And I was lucky. I got to talk to Sean Elliott earlier in the week when they did a Zoom. And he was like, I asked him about that Tennessee win, and he was like, there's not that much you can, take from that game because different circumstances, things like that. And I think he fired up a few people because he was like, it's not like we're going to go into that big old stadium and the Eagles going to fly over us and we're going to be shell-shocked, like we've been in moments like that before, which is, he's right. I mean,
absolutely.
Knoxville, Neyland Stadium's like, 102, 103,000? That wasn't like, they were playing in the local rec league park.
It's not why he's going to lose.
Yeah.
He's going to lose because he doesn't have the dudes.
Exactly. And that's what I like, too. He was like, look, I'm just going to tell you, they're bigger than us, they're faster than us, they're stronger than us, but we're still going to go try to figure out if we can do what we can to win.
Right.
So it was interesting to kind of hear that perspective and also to get Ben because he's all over Georgia State as far as covering the football team as well as basketball too. He really knows that program, so it was good to have him on.
Nice. Yeah, it was great.
So looking forward to getting ready for the game on Saturday to kind of cover that. Before we get out of here, the SEC did us just a huge favor on Tuesday. Let me tell you, this was great. Going in between interviews.
Jordan, why?
Why? For anyone who missed it, the SEC decided in after week 3, we want to release our 2022 SEC schedules.
Before this conference schedule has hardly started, maybe 2 conference games so far.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about next year. And I'm like, why don't we do that in May?
Why are we doing this?
In June, when nothing's happening.
Nevertheless, Auburn was among the teams, clearly, that we got to learn their schedule. So I'm going to rattle these off, the non-con and the conference games.
Sure.
Starting with at home versus Mercer, versus San Jose State, versus Penn State in the end of that home and home. They'll be coming to Auburn next year. The very first SEC game will be versus Missouri in Jordan-Hare. The next week you'll have versus LSU. October 8th at Georgia. October 15th at Ole Miss. Then you have a bye week. Then you host Arkansas at Mississippi State versus Texas A&M. Then you have a home game versus the mighty Western Kentucky Hilltoppers.
Hey.
And then you in the Iron Bowl at Alabama. So did anything strike you about the schedule, the conference schedule, anything that sort of stands out about what Auburn will be looking at next year?
LSU and Georgia still back-to-back. That's the new amen corner, if you want to call it that. That's the new pivotal point. So those 2 back-to-back, every year I think you kind of wonder if those are going to still be back-to-back because that's kind of – it's so new that it doesn't feel set in stone yet, but maybe it is.
And, that's funny to me because there was always the complaint or at least the observation that we have to play Georgia and then we have to play Alabama every year. And so it was like, all right, we got rid of that, but here's LSU and Georgia. So, I mean, that's, still comparable, probably not quite as bad, but still no
I guess,
easy thing.
But back in the day, they would play Cupcake Georgia, Cupcake Alabama.
Yeah.
So, but now, not so much.
Yeah.
Now it's just so. But I think adding the conference game changed all that anyway, so you probably couldn't do that anyway. But hey man, you just got to deal with it. So it helps in some ways and it hurts in others. So there you go. I don't know. This is gonna be tough. just like this year.
Yeah. The biggest thing to me, and this is including the non-conference play, they open with, I think, 5 straight home games.
Right.
So,
correct.
I mean, that's going to be big. Mercer, San Jose State, Penn State, Missouri, LSU. You've got to try to take advantage of that.
Yes.
And I think the last time Auburn did that was 16, I think, and it was a rough start. I think they lost 2 or 3 of those games. So
Right.
it's a matter of when you have that many home games, try to take advantage, especially when you're playing what I'm sure will still be marquee teams like Penn State and LSU. I'm sure this time next year, both of those have a good chance of being ranked.
Yeah,
So
LSU could be completely different.
Yeah, exactly. Billy Napier running no tackle. Really, you don't
never
know,
know.
but they'll still be, a very talented team, and you know that you got to try to take care of business if you want to go after those goals that Brian Harsin and this coaching staff have set.
Right. It's favorable, I'd say.
Yes.
You'd rather have started this year with 5 straight home games, but it's certainly favorable. But then again, the rest of it's not. Traveling to Georgia, traveling to Alabama. So, another more tough sledding in the Southeastern Conference. I guess that one's the less travel year.
Yes.
For us, isn't it?
Yep, it is.
As media, so we'd travel to Mississippi State and Ole Miss. Missouri comes here. Arkansas comes here. All right.
Okay, we can deal with that.
Not a lot of plane. Is there a plane ride there?
Let me look. I don't really.
There might not be a plane ride.
Yeah.
It might all be driving.
I mean, the farthest one's going to be the Mississippi game. So
Yeah.
we'll be driving, brother.
All right.
As you get the hankering to try to fly into Starkville.
So it's Mississippi's at Georgia.
Yes. At Alabama.
At Alabama.
I believe that's it.
Yeah. See, that's crazy. Every other year, there's just like no travel.
Yes.
Anyway. All right.
I know that's what was funny about last year because that was my first year like really on the beat.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll just jump in the car.
Nowhere to go.
Cool.
Yeah. This will be there in a couple hours.
We do that.
Yeah.
But
we really have to take our travel budget over 2 years.
yes.
So anyway.
Yeah, that was the Philly trip last week. That really did make up for the whole not really going anywhere last year.
Right.
Which, really, if there was a year to not try to go somewhere.
Because this year
2020 was kind of the year not to try to go somewhere.
Yeah, that's true. Because this year it's Penn State.
Yep.
Got to fly to Texas A&M.
Yep.
Got to fly to Arkansas.
Yep.
Jeez.
Jeez Louise.
So, but next year they'll all be home.
Yep. And that'll make for smooth sailing on our side. So
maybe not for the Tigers, Jordan.
we'll see. We will see about that. Well, let's wrap this thing up.
We did it.
As always, we did it. Congratulations. So proud. Thanks again, as always, for listening to the podcast. Be sure to rate, subscribe, share it. Let us know what you think.
Hey, we're going to do post-game again, I think.
We will.
So watch out for that.
No airport trip. I may just drive out to the Auburn airport just to kind of keep that going.
The formerly known as Mike Hubbard Boulevard.
Yes.
So we'll be on the lookout for that on Saturday. And, if you got questions or something, tweet us. Twitter is our social media platform.
Yes.
So you can jump on Twitter. But yeah, after the game, Auburn wins. You're kind of in the glow. You want to reflect on it a little bit.
Even get ready a little for LSU.
We got a podcast right here for you.
Yeah.
Delivered to your doorstep, proverbially, if you hit subscribe.
If you have Wi-Fi, you can get it. So be looking for that. Be looking for stories these next few days. I have one on Jarquez Hunter. I was able to talk to some of his high school coaches, so that was pretty cool. And
who is this kid?
we'll have the game day edition. Then I'll have all kinds of good stuff in there. So be looking for it. So we'll wrap it up right there. For Justin Lee, I'm Jordan Hill. Until next time, take care.